that Madam Dr. Salia Rex is here with us for this conference, and it's a proud moment that I'm given a chance to introduce Madam here. And Dr. Salia Rex, she is an assistant professor in English who has been teaching at St. Paul's College since 2005, and she has served as the head of the Department of English during the period 2017 to 20, and now she is the Dean of International Affairs at St. Paul's College for the academic year 2021, and she has served as research guide at Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam since 2019, and Shakespearean drama is her chief research area. And Madam also has been conferred with two prestigious awards in recognition of her academic, professional, and research contributions. I'm happy that Dr. Sadia Rex is here to address our students and the participants from outside. Hope this session would be a wonderful one. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your felicitation and wonderful introduction to our chief guest. Now I would like to hand over the session to the resource person, Dr. Salia Rex. And, she'll be talking to us on the Bronte family, a showcase of Victorian women. And participants, you can post your questions, queries in the chat box, and the resource person will answer all your questions at the end of the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, dear friend, Mr. John Bubadi. I take this opportunity to extend my thank you for having invited me to become a part of this national webinar. And it is a golden opportunity to make myself connected with Mr. John Bubadi, with whom I was connected earlier during one of my presentation at KPS College, Nilgiris. I still have golden memories of that occasion. So it is a beautiful moment for me because I'm also given a chance to get reconnected with beautiful memories of my presentation overseas in Germany, connected with Anne Bronte. So firstly, I like to congratulate the Department of English for having come up with such an appropriate topic for deliberation during the Women's Day. And I have to congratulate you because you have chosen the most appropriate writers to deliberate on, the Bronte sisters, especially during the Women's Day. Because here we have three women who we are not known completely. I again speak from my own experience. My knowledge about the Bronte sisters was very, very limited earlier. It was when I was given a chance to take part in the international seminar as a presenter alone, I understood about the excellence and the magnificence of these three sisters. That gave me an opportunity to read more about the Bronte sisters. Then I understood how much they had the potential, the greatness of the family, the grit and the bravery of these three women to come up against all odds in life and to just emerge as luminaries. And in my opinion, we have not understood and we have not read enough and researched enough on these three writers. And our knowledge about these three writers are so limited. We know about Charlotte Bronte as the writer of Jane Eyre. We know about Emily Bronte as the writer of Wuthering Heights. And unfortunately, our knowledge is so limited. And I came to know more about the third sister, Anne Bronte, only when I was given a golden opportunity to take part in the international seminar that took place in Bonn University in Germany. It was literally a phenomenal moment for me, which gave me the realization of these three women. And I researched more in order to present me well for the international seminar. I read more on the Bronte family. And I was so surprised how come these women could emerge so well when writers in the Victorian age, they still stumbled upon various problems and deviations concerning women. And we need to know that during that time, during the beginning of the 19th century, during the Victorian age, the freedom of women was so limited. And it was a time when women were not given even the opportunity or freedom to own their own property. So this is something really shocking. And that was a time when women were not even given chances to educate themselves. So lots of limitations in all aspects. And amidst all these three sisters, they are emerging so well. So naturally, it was curious to know more about them. I felt curious to know more about them. And through reading, I came across the history of the family and certain realizations and certain very surprising facts got evolved from the research I carried out for my own presentation in 2019 at Bonn. And I came to know that more about the Bronte family. And Brontes, the three Bronte sisters, we know only about Emily Bronte, we know about Charlotte Bronte, and we also know a bit about Anne Bronte. And the other three daughters of a clergyman, a vicar named Patrick Bronte. Patrick Bronte was actually an Irish clergyman, and it is told that in the year 1812, he met a beautiful woman named Maria Branwell, and they got married in 1812. And the initial residence of this vicar was in a place called Thorndon. And later on, he got transferred to other places, especially a place called Haworth, where he became a perpetual vicar until his death. As an aged man, as an old man of 78 years. So that is about Patrick Bronte. And as a part of their marriage, the family got shifted, as I told earlier, to Haworth. And even though the family flourished immediately, in the year 1821, the family suffered a very unexpected blow through the death of Mrs. Maria Branwell. So, wife of Patrick Bronte died unexpectedly, caused by tuberculosis, which was a very common epidemic and disease, which was a widespread disease during that time in England. And as a part of that, she succumbed to that disease and she died in the year 1821. And during that time, the family was flourishing financially as well as in the number of children the couple had. And there were 6 children. Maria was the first daughter, and she was born in the 1814. And the second daughter of Patrick Bronte was Elizabeth, and the third daughter was the first known writer, Charlotte Bronte, and she was born in the year 1816. And fourthly, they had a son, and he was actually the only male child the family had, named Patrick Branwell. And the 5th child was Emily Bronte. She was born in the year 1818, and the youngest of the brood was Anne Bronte. So altogether, there were 6 children when their mother passed away in the year 1821. So during that time, when the family suffered the unexpected blow in the form of the mother's death, the family did not know how to rear the children, especially the 6 small children. Anne was just 1 year old child, when her mother passed away. So naturally, Patrick Bronte is seeking the support of his sister. Her name is Elizabeth Branwell, and she was a spinster. And therefore, at the request of her brother Patrick, she is broad-minded enough to come and stay in the family of her brother till her death. During the rest of her life, she is literally just sacrificing her life and resources for the nourishment of the Bronte children. So when we think about the initial kind of inspiration the family had, especially the Bronte sisters had, we have to say a big thank you to the characters Elizabeth Branwell, to the father Patrick Bronte, and also to a nurse who was a constant presence in the family. Her name is Tabitha Aykroyd. So these were the three important initial inspiration for the Bronte sisters. And the sisters, they literally flourished under the care of their supportive father, maternal sister, maternal aunt, and also the nurse. It is told that the nurse, Tabitha, she used to narrate stories about the local stories, and she used to narrate the local legends to the three children while she was busy in the kitchen cooking food for the children, for the Bronte children. And apart from that, the father, he was very inspirational person, and being an educated man himself, he was also blessed with an expansive library at home. So what it was told that he opened his library for the children, and the children devoted their time and attention for reading from a very young age. And it's told that after reading, they started even writing on their own. And it's really surprising to know that the three young sisters, they showed a very interesting and surprising taste, flair for writing. And they started writing firstly without showing their father. So it is told that they used to write their initial writings on small, very miniature copies, which was almost the size of a matchbox. So you can imagine the size of a matchbox. So on that tiny sheets of paper, bits of paper, they used to write their initial literary expressions. And these women, these young, the Bronte sisters, during that time they were small children, they was exceptionally imaginative. And it's told that when they were very young, around 12 years old, their father, he brought the young children a pair of wooden toys. And using these wooden toys with the help of their bountiful imagination, they used to create imaginative worlds and write stories based on those imagination. And it's told that even the character, even it's told that Emily and Anne, they created an imaginative world entirely for themselves, named Gondol. Gondol was the name of that imaginative island. And it's told that Charlotte, she created a kingdom for herself. The name of the kingdom was an African kingdom of glass towers. So that was the imaginative locale which was created by Charlotte entirely for herself. So they used to write during that time. And when we think about the family, the Bronte family, I told you about how misfortune fell on the family in the form of their mother's death in 1821. And immediately after that, one by one, the children of the Bronte family met with their death. So the first child to die was Elizabeth, and she was only 10 when she died, and followed by the second daughter. I told that the first child was Maria. Maria was the first one to die. Maria died at the age of 10, followed by Elizabeth. So these were the two children of the Bronte family who were first to succumb to death at a very young age of 10 and 11, respectively. It is told that initially the Bronte family, Patrick, father, the clergyman Patrick Bronte, sent his children to a school which was run for the clergy daughters. So at that time in England, there were schools which were run for educating, particularly the clergyman's daughter. And these schools, and one such school was in a place called Coven Bridge. And it is in that school that the Bronte sisters, that is Maria and Elizabeth, was sent for their initial studies. And because of the poor condition in that school, because of malnutrition and also the widespread attack of epidemic, these two children died in that school. So that was another tragedy that so that was audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Thank you. So that was another tragedy that befell the family after the death of Mrs. Bronte, the mother of the family. And the deaths of the two daughters was unbearable for the remaining Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne. So they became, after that, after the death of their sisters, it is told that the three sisters were obsessed with death. So they also knew that very soon in the future, they also have to succumb to death. So that fear of death and the uncertainty of their own life started having its sway on the sisters after that. So it is told that the sisters constantly lived under the threat of an impending death at any time. But that did not prevent them from emerging as the writers, emerging as novelists. So when we think about the zest expressed by these women, by especially the three surviving Bronte sisters, we are surprised because it's told that they had a very limited resources. They had very limited space within their family home, and it's told that the sisters, they used to wait for Patrick, their father, to go to bed for them to come out of their room. So they used to creep gently without waking their father up. They used to come out and they used to sit late at night writing and discussing on their novels. So that was the ardent interest of these women. And it's told that they used to sit around a table. The three sisters, three young sisters, they used to sit around a table and they used to discuss, have constant discussion on the novels they have written. And based on this discussion, they revised the draft and they even made a very serious decision to publish their works. And all these are taking place at a time when the women were prohibited to write and to express themselves in clear-cut terms in society. So all this happened at a time when women were not given the freedom to present themselves by their original name as writers. So that was a time when the women writers, they wrote under pseudonym because they knew that once their identity is revealed, they will never be accepted merely by the fact that they are women writers. So that was actually the hard and fast rules and the kind of limitations the women felt and experienced during the Victorian times. And it is during that time that we have these three women boldly making a decision to become writers on their own. So that is the greatness of the three Bronte sisters. And it's told that the first writer, the first of the siblings to decide to publish the work was of course Emily Bronte, when she decided to publish Wuthering Heights, followed by Charlotte and Anne. So they started publishing, and it was almost like a kind of a joy for them, which gave them immense inspiration to do more, to write more. So it was a passion for them, and they emerged themselves as writers without any external agency or they did not have any godfathers to protect them, to usher them to the literary field. And it is told that the society was very stringent and very much antagonistic towards the women writers, especially Charlotte. So many of her novels, they were not well received when it was published, but that did not stop them from writing. And that is actually the charisma of Bronte sisters. And we are totally surprised and shocked by the natural charm and the natural passion that is there in these women. And we are not getting an appropriate answer they derive the strength from, because they did not have anyone to support them and to usher them to the field of publishing during that time, because the entire system was against women writers during that time. And here we have these three writers emerging as a squad, and the trio are showing so much of boldness to meet the publishers themselves. It is told that the Bronte sisters, they used to travel to London to speak directly to the publishers, to allow their work to be published. So the initial publications were done in pseudonyms. Okay, so they did not publish their original name. So it was Acton Bell, Currer Bell, and Ellis Bell. These were actually the pseudonyms under which these three writers, these three sisters wrote. So that again shows the surveillance they suffered as writers, the kind of taboo that was inflicted on these women during the 19th century. So it is really refreshing to know how these women writers, these three sisters, they emerged under all sorts of debilitating problems in their life, within and without. So constantly they were, as I told you, they were under the threat of ill health. So they suffered, the family suffered, and they literally lived at the income which was incurred by their father, who was a vicar, who was a clergyman. So that was only support they had. And other than that, it is told that their aunt, that is earlier I told, Elizabeth Branwell, so she was kind enough to live with the family, to support, to nourish and nurse the three children. It is told that she passed away in the year 1842. And she, being a wealthy woman, it is told that she passed over a very substantial legacy to the three Bronte sisters when she died in 1842, which enabled the three Bronte sisters to devote their rest of their time of their life for writing. So until then, these three Bronte sisters, they were trying to support their father by their decision to work as teachers or governesses. So that was the only possibility, or that was the only possible profession which was which is open to the daughters of clergymen during that time. So that was the only respectable profession which they could bank on in order to support themselves. We know that Emily Bronte and Anne Bronte, they did a lot as governesses. So it is told that they worked as governesses themselves in order to support their family until they were given the legacy from their aunt, Elizabeth Branwell, in 1842. And it is only from 1842, the three Bronte sisters, they came back to their family home at Haworth, and they settled and started writing, devoting time as full-time writers. So that is very important turning point in their life when they decide to become full-fledged writers. Now, when we think about the Bronte family, as I told you, as a whole, the family is highly an inspirational one. Is an inspirational one for women. When we think about the kind of uh, heart, grit, and willpower they expressed as women writers, and as writers themselves, as sisters, they are indeed an inspiration for women of all time. But when I think about the writers, these three writers as writers, I am literally truly surprised by the writings of Anne Bronte. So I would like to devote more time on her writings as a woman writer, because she is indeed a prodigy. She is indeed a writer far ahead of her times, who could carve a niche for the carve a niche as a Victorian novelist of great renown. And she could do all this with just two novels of her time, Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Winfell Hall. And when we think about Anne Bronte, the youngest of the three Brontes, she has written only two works, and they are, as I told you, Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Winfell Hall. These are the two works. And of this, the first one, Agnes Grey, is highly autobiographical. And when we think about the novel Agnes Grey, it is, as I told you, highly autobiographical, because the writer is reflecting on her own life as the daughter of Patrick Bronte in this novel. So she writes about her own experiences as a young woman who is so much interested to live a life of her own, which is a very, very surprising decision in the Victorian period of time. Again, when we think about the Victorian society, the stringent Victorian society. So here we have a young woman who is all set to emerge and to forge forth in her life as a working woman. She wants to become a governess, and she is making that decision on her own. And later on, she's given the permission by her father, Patrick Spence, and that's how she works as a governess for some time. And her experiences, Anne Bronte's experiences as a governess, is what she has reflected in her novel Anne Bronte, in her novel Agnes Grey. And when we think about the novel, it actually reveals the thoughts and vagaries of a country girl who is nurturing a very ardent desire to become a self-reliant woman. So Agnes, the protagonist of the novel, is foil to all other frivolous women characters in the novel. And there are other characters too in the novel. They are Rosalie, Matilda, we have Mrs. Murray and Mrs. Bloomfield, who are a part of the novel. And they all depict the gender-biased society. And in the novel, Agnes Grey, Agnes is a young governess who is hailing from a close-knit middle-class family of strong value system and moralistic upbringing. And it is actually the financial crisis that she undergoes which propels her to work as a governess. And the novel is about the troubles she undergoes in the Bloomsfield family, with whom she works during the initial phase of her life as a governess. And there she she is speaking about the gender discrimination that was very obvious in the Victorian society. The atrocities which were carried out against women, all these are expressed in the novel Agnes Grey. So we find the character Agnes Grey as a governess raising her voice against these unjustful practices in the society. So we find the character acting as a spokeswoman against the foibles of the Victorian society. The boldness expressed by Agnes Grey is what making this novel a noteworthy expression. And we find the earnest desire of young Agnes to seek the job as a governess to support her family. And she also reveals her grit as a woman. And she is someone who is bold enough to correct her wards when they commit mistakes. So the moral values and the strength of mind of a woman is what she expresses in the novel. And as I told you earlier, Agnes Grey, the novel is highly autobiographical. So we see Anne Bronte through the character Agnes Grey. And she speaks about the problems underwent by women during her time, how much they are mere puppets in the hands of men, how much their roles are limited by the stringent and the strict points of view of men during that time. So in all aspects, it's a reflection of the Victorian society. So the autobiographical element of Agnes Grey is literally throwing light on the privileged childhood of Anne Bronte as a vicar's daughter. So in this novel, Agnes Grey is constantly ruminating on her own happy childhood as a young woman. And it is actually the joy and the kind of strength that she has encapsulated in her as a happy child, which is giving her the strength to bear the problems and the rigors of her life as a governess. So she is thanking her own happy childhood. And in this novel, she is also speaking about the importance of having a happy childhood for a child in order to become a successful and happy adult. So here in this novel, she also speaks about the importance of good parenting. So how much it is important for the parents to rear their children appropriately in order to make them in order to make them to be a blessing for the society. So in all aspects, the novel is a resource for the society, for English literature, because it has several important streaks of inspiration for the readers. It can inspire young mothers to become better mothers. It can inspire a young woman to utilize her life in a better way. So it also inspires a human being to be considerate and tolerant to the society, to the world around oneself. So in all aspects, it is an enlightening resource, and that is Agnes Grey, the beautiful novel. Even though it's a first novel, it is a novel which has the appeal of a creation by a seasoned writer. So that is about Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey. But I am tempted to quote some lines from Agnes Grey, which will give us a clear understanding about the strong voice she raises against the gender discrimination, which was there during the Victorian times. So she says here, "Mary and I were brought up in the strictest seclusion. My mother being at once highly accomplished, well informed, and fond of employment, took the whole charge of our education on herself, with the exception of Latin, which my father undertook himself. So I'm quoting from from page 4 of Agnes Grey. So here, Agnes is speaking about her bountiful childhood and how much she was blessed by her mother and father who could educate her and offer her a blessed childhood. And the following lines, she continues, Agnes Grey says, I only wish Papa, Mama, and Mary were all of the same mind as myself. And then, instead of lamenting past calamities, we might all cheerfully set to work to remedy them. And the greater the difficulties, the harder our present privations, the greater should be our cheerfulness to endure the latter, and our vigor to contend against the former. So, in the writing of Agnes is reflecting about the willpower and the strength of mind to face life with vigor and a downless spirit. And the following line, I like to quote some more, where she says, it's on page 9, but Mama, I'm about 18 and quite able to take care of myself and others too. You do not know half the wisdom and prudence I possess because I have never been tried. So here she is talking in very clear terms to her mother, asking her to give her permission to work as a governess. So this is the request made by Agnes Grey to her mother, who did not allow her at first to work as a governess. So she says, she claims that she is now about 18 and able on her own to lead her way. So this is again, as I told you, quite unprecedented, because during the Victorian time, women were never given opportunities to work beyond their domestic world. So during that time, we find a young woman making all set and making all preparations for her own life. And in the following line, we find the assertiveness of Agnes Grey, which is indeed the reflection of the assertive nature of Anne Bronte. Here we have the lines. She says, I still think it is Tom, and perhaps your papa and mama would think so too, if they thought much about it. However, I internally added, they may say what they please, but I am determined you shall do nothing of the kind as long as I have power to prevent it. So here, and Agnes Grey is presenting herself as a very stern and very strict governess who is ready to correct the foibles of her wards. So in her family, in the family of Bloomfield, where she got appointed as a governess, the children misbehaved at very serious stretches, and it was imperative for her to stop them in clear-cut terms. And it was done at the expense of her own job. So it is told that she lost her job for being a stern governess. Okay, so that is how the first, that's how she is losing her first assignment as a governess at the family of Bloomsfield. And later it is told she is getting another assignment, and she's opting for another assignment at the family of Murrays. Okay, so that is her second assignment. And it is told that in the novel, it's told that Agnes returns after being expelled from her job from Bloomsfield family, and she is not ready to accept her defeat, even though she is expelled from her job due to reasons out of her making. She is ready to make another attempt in her life. So that shows the grit of this woman, which is indeed the willpower of Anne Bronte. And she decides to send an advertisement, to post an advertisement in the newspaper, and there she gets another assignment as a governess of another family, the Murrays. And that is her second assignment as a governess, as narrated in the novel Agnes Grey. And towards the end of the novel, we find Agnes Grey decides to get married, and the marriage and the decision regarding the marriages are entirely hers own, and she does not allow neither her family or anyone else to prescribe rules on her. So that is again a very serious and unheard decision during the Victorian times. Because during that time, during the Victorian times, women were prohibited, or they were not allowed to make decisions for themselves on their own, for their life, or for their own personal matters. So during that time, we find Agnes Grey coming up with such a serious decision regarding her own life. And that is quite unprecedented. And when we think about, and I would like to discuss on the second novel by Anne Bronte, and the title of the novel is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And it is again a novel which discussed on matters which were not discussed in any Victorian novel during that time. And this novel also has a very strong protagonist named Helen Graham. And she's a strong woman who is steering her life according to her own principles of life. And the novel is published in the year 1848. And the novel is in the form of 3 phases. And the novel begins by portraying Helen Graham as a widow who has come to a place called Windfell Hall, and she's a new person in the society. So how much the society looks in a very questionable manner towards a newly joined member, the difficulties undergone by a person who is a part of the society for the first time, and the kind of initial rigors of a woman who is totally new to a society is what discussed in the Windfell Hall, the tenant of the Windfell Hall. So the grit and willpower of Helen Graham is what Anne Bronte discusses here. And she is speaking about the double standards of the Victorian society, the disparity that is so much profound in the domestic worlds, the gender discrimination that is part and parcel of the Victorian society. And the novel is replete with axiomatic statements throughout, which is revealing the discriminatory attitude of the Victorian times. And as I told you, Anne Bronte is also depicting alcoholism and debauchery as profound vices of the Victorian times. And she is literally pinpointing these foibles in the society through the character Helen Graham, who is literally speaking against these vices in men in this novel. And when I think about the novel, The Tenant of Windfell Hall, I would like to read out some excerpts from the novel in order to speak about how she reveals the gender disparity. Here we have a character named Rose speaking about the gender discrimination carried out at her own home by her mother. She says, "If there is anything particularly nice at table, Mama winks and nods at me to abstain from it. And if I don't attend to that, she whispers, 'Don't eat so much of it, Rose Gilbert. Don't eat so much of it, Rose. Gilbert will like it for supper. And nothing at all in the parlor. It is, come, Rose, put away your things and let us have the room nice and tidy before they come in. And keep up a good fire. Gilbert likes a cheerful fire.'" So we had the mother forcing the daughter to do excessive number of chores, and she is even prohibited from having an extra meal because all the niceties are offered for the male members of the family. So the mother is taking upper hand in keeping aside all the niceties for the male children, forcing Rose, her daughter, to suffer. So the privations and the negations she had to suffer as a young woman is what Rose, the character, is revealing. And when we read the novel, we feel we could relate so well with the problems of women, because this is actually what women generally undergo in an Indian domestic background. Okay, so it is something very, very relatable. And I remember when I presented this in amidst the German audience at Bonn University, I presented it exactly in the same way. So how relatable it is to the Indian background. And it is surprising that such gender discrimination was carried out in England during the 19th century. And it is surprising that in India, we are still undergoing the same level of discrimination, even now. And these are aspects we have to think, we have to change, at least now. Okay, because we know even now in our societies, even now in our families, in our domestic grounds, women are not allowed, or women are prescribed from having foods, a particular kind of food which will be kept aside for the male members. And these are things which are quite relatable to us. And that is exactly what Anne Bronte speaks out here. And in another page, that is on page 10, Anne Bronte is speaking another instance on household matters and all the little niceties of cookery and such things that every lady ought to be familiar with, whether she be required to make a practical use of her knowledge or not. No matter, my dear, it is what every respectable female ought to know. So here we have the character, a woman, a mother, is telling her daughter Rose to be well versed in matters concerning running one's own home. So a woman should be adept in her domestic chores, and only then she can be successful in her life. So a very clear gender structure or construct is actually what is presented before us by the writer Anne Bronte. The social constructs which were very, very prominent during the Victorian times is actually brought out through these excerpts. And in the novel, Anne Bronte, as I told you, she is becoming very assertive regarding marriage. And here we have the character Helen, who is a very strong woman, and she has her own norms regarding her life. And she is not allowing her family to take an upper hand regarding her marriage. And even though she has been forced to get married to a man against her interest, she is boldly prohibiting that venture. And she says, I hope my uncle and you told him it was not in your power to give it. What right had he to ask anyone before me? I tell you plainly that it cannot be. No consideration can induce me to marry against my inclination. So it's a very bold move, bold statement for a woman to speak during the beginning of the 19th century. So it can be common now. Okay, women can have bold statement regarding her own life in the present time. But this situation takes place in the beginning of the 19th century. And that expresses the boldness of a woman to speak for herself. And we find a woman of self-respect in the character Helen Braham, where she says, without another word, I left the room and locked myself up in my own chamber. In about half an hour, he came to the door and door, and first he tried to handle, then he knocked. "Won't you let me in, Helen?" "No, you have displeased me, and I don't want to see your face or hear your voice again till morning." So that's a bold move made by Helen Graham when she found that her husband has been involved in an illicit relationship with another woman, which is known to Helen. And when she knew about it, she is boldly stopping him from entering into her bedroom on that night. So that is expressed here. So that shows the boldness of the woman to speak of her own decisions, and she is not even allowing the man to enter her bedroom chamber, enter her bed chamber. So that is a very bold action made by Helen. And in the novel, as the novel progresses, we have read another excerpt. It is taking place on December 20th, 1826. "The 5th anniversary of my wedding day, and I trust the last I shall spend under this roof. My resolution is formed, my plan concocted, and already partly put in execution." So in the year 1826, Helen Graham decides to move away from her family home, which she shared with her husband, Arthur Huntington. So Arthur Huntington, being drawn to debauchery and licentious life, she decides to just divorce him and move to another place. And when she moved her home, when she left her family home, she did not know where she is heading towards. But she has a very clear-cut reason, and the reason is to support her child and save his values and save his future from being tainted by the negative influence of his father. So that is actually the noble reason that inspired Helen Graham to walk out from her home. So she's literally slamming her door, which is reminding us of the slamming of the door which we come across in Ibsen's The Doll's House. So it is told that the slamming, when Dora slammed the door, it is literally reverberating throughout Europe. So in the same way, in this novel too, we have such a situation where Helen is closing the door forever as she decides to quit the family to lead a life of her own for the sake of her child, Arthur. So that is a bold decision taken by this woman. And we find Helen decides to become a freelance painter in order to make her own living. And as in the novel, we get a beautiful picturization of a home office for the first time. So home office is not a modern day prerogative. It is not a modern day room in a family. But here we have Anne Bronte presenting a woman who is constructing her own home office as a part of a family home in order to forge forth as a career woman. So these are refreshing modernist pictures we get in the novels of the Bronte sisters, especially Anne Bronte. And I'm quite surprised how come this young woman could write so much with so much of limited experiences. So it is told that the Bronte sisters, they literally led a life as recluse. Okay, they did not mingle much with the society, except for the limited exposure they had as governesses and teachers. Majority of their life was led indoors, within the four walls of their family. But how could they emerge so well as writers who knew and who experienced the splendor of human life in such a great degree? So that is actually the wonder, that the magnificence of these three writers. And I would like to conclude by just congratulating the Department of English for keeping aside a valuable time for deliberations on these three writers who can be of immense inspiration for young women of our time. Because if these women could do so much in the beginning of the 19th century, amidst all sorts of prohibitions and problems and negations, I am sure women of our time can do much more and much more commendable feats for the society and for women around us. So with this note, I would like to conclude my lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. It was truly inspiring knowing a lot of new facts about the Bronte family. As you have started we are familiar with only these three sisters, not much about the others. Also the novels, you have given a very detailed explanation of the Bronte family, particularly about their literary works. We'll go for the question and answer session. If there is any questions, participants, you can post it in the chat box. If there is any questions, feedback, queries, you can post it in the chat box. Madam, can you read the chat or do you want me to read?
Yeah, it will be good if you could read for me so that I can just get more focused.
Okay, there is a question, ma'am.
Yes.
The participant asked, which theory can be applied in the perception of feminism? And relating to our topic, there is another participant asked a question, how Wuthering Heights, the novel Wuthering Heights, relates with Emily Bronte?
Yes. Okay, so I'll be taking it one by one. When I think about firstly, let me speak about Wuthering Heights and Emily Bronte. And when you consider that it is about the wild passion that Emily Bronte discusses in Wuthering Heights. And when you consider that novel, we do not find much autobiographical elements. It is more a creative expression by the writer. And whatever she had experienced as a young woman from her overseas exposure as a young woman is what she discusses in the novel Wuthering Heights. And mostly it's a creative work where she is writing about the influence and the effect of wild, unbridled passion on human life. And it can be a study in feminism too, where we find the raw feelings and impulses of women discussed. So it is more a woman-centric novel where the feelings and the thoughts of women, especially the protagonist, is discussed. And the troubles and the pain of unrequited love is another theme of the novel Wuthering Heights. And through the novel, Emily Bronte is speaking about the pain of an unrequited affair, love, and the sufferings of human beings. The entire characters, they suffer because of not being understood properly by one another. And the lack of warmth in the relationship, which makes certain characters get connected with themselves, which is literally the reason why Catherine is so much tied with Heathcliff. And how the parental tyranny is another reason. So we find the writer Emily Bronte is speaking about the problems which can be triggered by wrong parenting. So when we think about the novel, that is a very possible theme. How children are not properly understood, and how improper parenting is leading to broken personalities, which is literally wrecking their lives. That is a very important theme in Wuthering Heights when we consider the novel. And after reading so much of, anything else, I'm just trying to find the chat box. After reading so much of Bronte work, it was fascinating to get to know about the Bronte as a family and their inspiration for their work. Yeah. So literature is nothing but a mirror held against a society. And being a literary man, the primeval influence will be the family. So it is the family, the family of Bronte, the Bronte family, which has nourished the three youngsters. And definitely, it is the work of Patrick Bronte, the father, who has nourished the three daughters by educating them so well, which has resulted in creating these three luminaries as writers. So we have to thank that great father for bringing forth these three women writers who were so much endowed with that grit and willpower to emerge against all oddities of life. Jane Eyre can be an autobiographical. Of course, yes, it is. It is an autobiographical novel, partially, yes. So her own experiences at the clergyman's school is what she reflects on in the background of Lovewood. Okay, so whatever she felt, and we have the character. I told you of her siblings. The first one to die was Elizabeth. Sorry, Maria was the second. The Elizabeth was the second. Maria was the first one. So Maria, the memories of Maria is what Emily is reflecting on through when the character Helen Burns dies in the novel Jane Eyre. So the character of Helen Burns is literally her own sister Maria. So in all aspects, there are reflections of her own life in Jane Eyre. It can be considered as an autobiographical novel. Okay. That's very true. I'm trying to find more. Is there anything else I can attend to?
I think that's all the relevant questions here.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. And to conclude this session formally, I would like to invite Ms. Magdalene Sophia, Assistant Professor of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you.
I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. My profound thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Salia Rex, for enlightening us about the words of wisdom. It gave us deep insights into the topic and also revealed the lightning identity of Bronte Sisters of Literature. Thank you, ma'am. My heartfelt thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. S. Palaniyammal, for her encouragement to make this event a grand success. I extend my warm regards and gratitude to Dr. M. Swapna, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, for her guidance and motivation for this program. I thank all the faculty members of Department of English and Mr. Vijay Kumar, System Admin, for his technical support. I thank all the participants for your kind cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And dear participants, the feedback link is posted in the chat box. Kindly fill your feedback. You will receive your e-certificate within a week's time. Thank you very much for all your participation. I have shared the feedback link in the chat box. Kindly fill your feedback for your e-certificates. You will receive your e-certificates within a week's time. Thank you all for your participation.